let me take you to just a very basic premise that I want to cover with everybody. I am beyond annoyed with what has been happening in Philadelphia with the Eagles and the way that they're being covered. I will tell you that I find the way that reporters are handling the situation around A.J. Brown and around Jalen Hurts, I find the whole thing to be exhausting, okay? I think that there are times where fans accuse the media of trying to drum up controversy, and I think it's unfounded. And then there are times where I have to agree with a very vocal set of fans on social media that there are definitely reporters who are trying to get an incendiary quote. And I think that is where we have officially landed. Because I want to be really clear. At this point in the season, with the Eagles at 8-2, leading the NFC, there is no reason, week in and week out, day in and day out, to ask A.J. Brown for his thoughts on the frustrations on the offense, to ask for his thoughts about the frustration or the reports that there's frustration with Jalen Hurts. There is nothing to gain, not a single thing. The only reason to ask the question is to try to break A.J. Brown. The only reason to ask the question is to hope that at some point he's going to let his guard down and give you a quote to run with for your story, for your show, for whatever. There is absolutely no reason at this point to go up to A.J. Brown in every single scrum and ask, well, what are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts? What are your thoughts on the offense? I saw a quote going around. The question was asked, do you watch other wide receivers in the league? Do you watch other wide receivers? And like CeeDee Lamb, how does he have the success? And A.J. Brown goes, I don't watch because it would make me sad. He's very clearly frustrated with the offense, right? Whether it's the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the quarterback, whoever it is, he's frustrated. That's fine. And I'm sure he's not the only one. Why the fuck are we asking the question every day? What are you trying to get? It's like poking. You're like just poking the bear. And obviously you hope that eventually he reaches out, snarls, and he says something and you get to run with it. And that becomes the big story. There's no reason to ask. Nothing has changed. What has changed? What this season has changed from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, week 4, week 5. What has changed? Certainly what has changed since last week? What happened since 2 days ago when you ask essentially the same questions? What has changed? Nothing. Not a damn thing. We're at a point where people are just trying to get, and Ford is right, it's not reporting, it's tabloid bullshit. That is where we have reached. We have reached a critical juncture where media, reporters, people who are down in the locker room are effectively working as tabloid reporters. They may as well find A.J. Brown getting out of his car, shove a camera in his face, and have the flash go off 40 times before he walks into NovaCare. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I have nary an idea. What I can tell you is it is shitty journalism, if you want to call it that. It is a shitty job of trying to report on the team. There is not a single reason to ask the question every day. Oh, Russ, reporters have the right to ask questions of a player whenever they want. That is part of the access. Didn't you used to do that when you would go down to the Flyers locker room? I did. You know what I remember doing? I remember hearing rumors of the Flyers being interested in trading Shane Gostisbehere. And I remember people not asking in the locker room to Shane Gostisbehere if his play was being impacted at all, of his name being thrown around in trade rumors. And I remember going on Snow the Goalie, and I think at the time crossing broadcast, and I would say, Shane Gostisbehere is probably a good candidate to trade. Here are some teams that might be interested. I don't think it's going to work out here. I think there are better places for him to go, yada, yada, yada. You know what I did? I went into the locker room, and one night after a game, I stood, me to the microphone. Well, maybe not that close. I don't need to smell the guy's aftershave, but like probably less than a foot away from Shane Gostisbehere. I held my phone up, and I asked him, do the trade rumors going around, like your name has kind of been out there in trade rumors, does that affect your play at all? Does it kind of get into your head? I stood face to face with the guy, and I asked the question because on Snow the Goalie, on Crossing Broadcast, wherever I think I was writing on Crossing Broad at the time, I had been kind of throwing out this idea that there were a lot of people organizationally adjacent that were talking about the fact that he was going to be a guy that could get traded. You know what I didn't do? I didn't go down every single day to Skate Zone and ask him every single day, hey, did you see this new trade rumor? Hey, what are your thoughts? Do you think the front office doesn't like you anymore? Hey, what are your thoughts on if the coach is utilizing you properly? I didn't do that every day. You know why? I went down, I asked a direct question. I asked it one time, and that was it. And then eventually Shane Gostisbehere got traded. That was it. It's not hard. The whole concept isn't difficult. If you want an answer, go down, ask a direct question, get your answer, fuck off. That's it. You don't need to go down every day and ask the same question in 17 different ways to try to piss off A.J. Brown enough that he's going to give you the quote that you want. Just stop. There's no value add. Not a single bit. The only value add, the only people right now who are benefiting from going down and trying to poke A.J. Brown until he gets pissed off enough that he gives you the quote that you want, the only people who benefit are the ones who talk into microphones. And this is it. I know it seems hypocritical because I'm talking about it on the show. I'm not talking about it from the vantage point of, I think A.J. Brown hates it here. I think we should go down and ask stupid questions. No, I'm taking the media to task. The only people who benefit are the ones who now, like if he gives you like a little breadcrumb that he's frustrated, says, I would be, it makes me sad to watch a guy like CeeDee Lamb and see the kind of success that he's having, because obviously he wants to dominate the opposition. We talked about it a million times on this show. The only people who benefit are the ones who ask the question and then turn around and talk into a microphone themselves. And then, I don't know. I think A.J. Brown might actually be unhappy here. I think he might be unhappy. He said that he's sad that he doesn't want to watch CeeDee Lamb play because it makes him sad. Like, fuck off. I'm so sick of it. I am so done with it. There is a point here where you have to look at yourself as a person who is a journalist, a reporter, a podcast host, or whatever. You have to do a little bit of introspection at some point and say, am I doing the very best by my readers, by my listeners, by whomever? Am I doing the best by them, going down and asking the same questions again and again and again? The answer is no. It's not. The only real reason that you do it is, I don't know, maybe there's a bonus in some of these people's contracts that if they get a certain amount of likes, impressions, retweets, whatever on their social media, that's the incentive. They have a financial incentive that's tied to this kind of bullshit tabloid journalism. That's it. It's the only thing I can think. Because if these people are going down day after day asking the same damn question again and again and again, hoping to piss the guy off enough to get a different answer, if they are doing that because they think it's good reporting, they are fucking dumb. They are legitimately stupid people. That is the only other argument. I would like to imagine that people who have found enough success in this life to get down and to cover the team are not genuinely stupid people. I have to imagine that their motives are financially tied to a bonus. It has to be, right? Has to be. Otherwise, I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense to me. You can ask A.J. Brown right now, are you frustrated with the offense? You can do it tomorrow. You do it the next day. Guess what? He's probably not going to give you a different answer. And he's getting better at giving answers or giving non-answers because you're asking it every goddamn day. Maybe if you just take a little break from asking the stupid question and try to get the incendiary answer, maybe you'll get an actual answer out of him in a week or two. Ask it every day. You're going to keep getting an essential no comment. Now, I say all this, and he gave you people, you writers, reporters, podcast hosts, whatever you are that are down there in the locker room, he gave you an answer that was, I guess, at least a little bit, ooh, what does he mean by that? Which I hate. I hate it. A.J. Brown got asked a question about his effectiveness, about whether or not he's the same player, the thought that maybe his play has dropped off. And so we'll throw it out because, again, this is an important thing to cover. A.J. Brown gave an actual answer. It wasn't a non-answer. So, we'll listen to it, and then you guys can decide, is this fair? Is this not fair? Here's A.J. Brown talking about whether or not he's the same player.
What would you say that there's been speculation out there that you are not the same player you once were? What would you say to those people?
I guess Saquon ain't the same player either.
For those who might not have heard that, he said, I guess Saquon ain't the same player then either. I guess Saquon ain't the same player either. Saquon's production is down this year versus last year when he was setting records. We'll keep going.
But I don't got no. Okay. Y'all don't believe that.
And he said to them, he's like, y'all don't believe that. You guys don't believe that. Okay. Here's the thing where on a human level, I feel bad for A.J. Brown. I know that a lot of times people go, oh, these guys are making millions of dollars. Why does it matter? Why do we feel bad? Why do we care? Yada, yada, yada. This guy makes a lot of money to play football. That is true. Guy's also a human being. And he's not getting asked questions about the matchup. There are other clips going around of him saying, just ask me about Dallas. Here's a player, a star player on a team, a guy who has been vital to this team, winning a Super Bowl and having a legitimate chance of going back and maybe even winning another one. This is a human being who's invested in this organization, this team, this community, this fan base, all of it. And instead of asking him questions about the upcoming opponent, this rivalry game against Dallas Cowboys, he's getting asked for like the 40th fucking time this week, are you frustrated? What do you say to the people who think that you're not the same player anymore? That's the best you got? I get that reporters and writers are asking dumber and more useless questions by the day. I get it. I've been in locker rooms. I've covered a team in Philadelphia. Two. I've gone into 2 locker rooms of professional teams in Philadelphia and written some stuff up or gone on and done shows in the aftermath. The Flyers in the Union, not the Eagles, to be fair. There were dumb fucking questions every time I went into a scrum. Every single time. Because, a lot of times, and this is probably another reason why you get so many of these dumb questions, people are trying to figure out what they're going to write. People have an idea of what they're going to write, and they go into the locker room and they ask questions that are based around the preconceived notion and the kind of ordained idea of what they want to write about that night or later that day. So they go in and they ask the questions. Like, if you ever want the cheat code of, I wonder what insert name of writer is going to be writing about, listen to their questions in the scrum. 9 out of 10 times, that is the lead of their story. That's exactly what they're going for. A.J. Brown, do you feel like you are no longer as effective? Then they get the quote, I guess Saquon ain't the same player. And then guess what? They probably go over to Saquon. Saquon, what do you think about, is A.J. Brown not the same kind of effective player he once was? And guess what? Saquon probably say, that's a fucking dumb question. He'll say it nicer because Saquon Barkley's a nice guy. And then maybe they go to Jalen Hurts when he's like, Jalen, do you think A.J. Brown isn't the same? They do that because that is going to be the lead of their story. That is the whole premise of their story. And again, is that doing right by the readers, by the listeners, by whomever? Probably not. I'm getting annoyed. If you can't tell, I'm getting annoyed with the line of questioning. If the Eagles were 2-8, these questions are fine. You want to find out why production's down at 2-8? Fine. They're 8-2. They are the top team in the NFC. They have a legitimate chance of having home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And instead of focusing on the team on the field, the media continues to go down and ask why A.J. Brown isn't happy or doesn't look happy or doesn't sound happy, that he doesn't have rainbows and smiles flying out of his ass and his ears at the same time. I am fed up. What you guys need to do, everyone watching, listening, whatever, you need to hold reporters accountable. You need to ask them to not get the fuck off. Figure it out. Find a different line of reporting. Here's an idea. Challenge the reporters. Challenge the people covering the team. Have them actually write about the games. Have them actually write about the tactics of the game. Have them actually go back to focusing on what's happening on the field. Oh, Russ, that might be a little bit too difficult. Okay, here's another idea. Have them write about year over year the drop in production of A.J. Brown. Have them talk to coaches and people within the NFL to give a little bit of insight. Are A.J. Brown's routes, are his route maps changed? Is he running fewer routes across the middle? What are the reasons that might be happening? Is Jalen Hurts not showing a propensity for wanting to throw over the middle of the field? Is Jalen Hurts showing dependency on underneath routes to his tight end? Whatever it is, challenge the reporters to do that. Challenge them to not do tabloid writing and have them actually do the thing that they're paid pretty well to do, which is cover the team and, maybe even possibly offering a little bit of insight into why the team is struggling, or talk to the people that can actually get the answers, or talk to people who can give you an educated reason why the productivity might have dropped. Instead of doing this tabloid bullshit every day.
A.J. Brown, why aren't you happy? You don't like being here, huh? A.J., you don't like being here, huh? A.J., do you not like Jalen Hurts anymore? A.J., poke it.
Stop. At some point, just stop. A.J. Brown is a much better, calmer, decent human being than many of us are. If you had to stand at your cubicle or stand at your desk or whatever and get peppered by questions day after day after day, the same damn thing. Why don't you get along with Susie anymore? Do you not get along with Tony anymore? Like, why? We haven't seen you and Tony have lunch together in a month. Like, is everything okay there? And ask the question every day. you'd lose your mind. Kudos to AJ Brown for not losing his mind yet. Although I'll tell you, if he does eventually, it'll be the fault of the media. AJ Brown has had every opportunity right now to blow up, and he hasn't done it yet. Kudos to him. Now I'm going to get to one other thing here really quick on this idea of the locker room and what's the right thing to ask? What's the wrong thing to ask? Jason Kelce earlier this week went on to WIP's morning show, and he was talking about the fact that there was a time that he got really frustrated and Lane got really frustrated. And it was a whole thing about how Lane Johnson came out, spoke about how difficult playing for Chip Kelly was and how intense it was and how guys were getting fatigued and how it was an issue. And so Lane Johnson went out publicly and said some stuff. Jason Kelce went out and said some stuff. Lane Johnson went out and said some stuff. And it led to a breakdown in communication between the two who are good friends. And so I actually want to go out there because, I think that this kind of stuff really does matter. So we're going to go out to Jason Kelce here really quick. And I want you to just hear a part of what he had to say. Again, it was part of a very good appearance on WIP's morning show. This is Jason Kelce talking about that weekend, or about that incident, I guess, with Lane Johnson, where things kind of fell apart because of a war of words, essentially, to the media.
I remember reading that, and I'm like, dude, and I went out and said something in the media and said, what does Lane know? Lane's only been with the Philadelphia Eagles. How does he know what it feels like to do other practices? He's only practiced with Chip Kelly. So he's saying something and parroting something from what other guys are saying. And to be honest, I think we're pretty pampered here in Philadelphia. And Lane then made another comment. Lane and I didn't talk for an entire offseason.
Wow.
Lane is like one of my best.
Do you hear the reaction there? And I'm going to cut it there. Do you hear the reaction? The reaction was wow. You know why the reaction was wow? Because no one knew. And you know why no one knew? Because there weren't rats. There weren't rats in the organization at the time. There weren't rats in the locker room running off to any media person who would listen to say, oh, yeah, Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson, they've been friends before, but I think their relationship is devolving. You didn't have rats going to the media saying, oh, you might want to look into the relationship between Kelce and Lane Johnson. Very clearly something is off. Yeah. There weren't rats within the organization who might not even be part of the locker room, but were parroting what was being said by other people. See, the Eagles do have an issue. I will acknowledge the Eagles have an issue. They have an issue culture-wise that there are people who feel empowered enough to go run off to any media member who will listen and gossip. And the other problem is that there are media people who don't have a discernible talent enough to do anything other than tabloid reporting, who can't say, you know what, that's really, whatever. If a guy doesn't like another guy in the locker room, there are other things that we need to cover. There are more important things to cover. You have rats. There are rats everywhere. It's a problem. Unfortunately, it's a problem with this team that very well could go off and play in yet another Super Bowl, maybe even win another Super Bowl. And instead, we're tied up in this drama week in and week out. It's nonsense. And I don't blame AJ Brown, and I don't blame Jalen Hurts, and I don't blame, in this case, Nick Sirianni, and I don't blame Kevin Patullo. I blame the rats in the organization that keep looking for a crumb or a little bit of cheese, whatever it is that makes them happy enough to go run off to the media with a scandal. Oh, there's a scandal. I swear, it's like if the Eagles did an end of season yearbook, they should have the lady who does the voice on the Bridgerton show. Dearest reader, oh, it was a scandalous day when the quarterback who slings the pigskin refused to speak to his former best friend and chose to pass the ball instead to a man who played in Alabama and won an award they refer to as the Heisman. Oh, dearest reader, I suppose we should take a look at that ahead of the matchup this week against the Boys of the Cows in Dallas. That's how stupid this has gotten. You may as well turn it into a Netflix special.